Hey guys, Mr. Milton here. Today we're going to talk about constructions. At the end of this video, you should be able to copy a segment and an angle using a Comtractor, and you should be able to construct a perpendicular bisector and an angle bisector using a Comtractor. Okay. Now first, with constructions, you need three things: a pencil or pen. I use pens. Pens might be better. A straight edge. And a compass. Okay, so you should have a tool that takes care of the first, not two things, but two of the three things. Okay, Comtractor. Okay, if you don't have one, make sure you get one. Call it a Comtractor. I'm not sure what it's really called. It's a safety mark. I don't know. We call it a Comtractor. Comtractor. Ooh. Okay. All right. So because it's a compass, straight edge, ruler, protractor at the same time. So we call it a Comtractor. Okay. Don't lose it. We'll need it throughout the year. And if you want to get a new one, you have to go to the treasurer and get one for $3.75. While this one is already paid for, so please don't lose it. Alright, so we will go through these constructions. I'll show you how it's done. I'll leave you some examples to do as well. Okay, with the Comtractor, you might have to loosen it up, especially in your first go around. I think me and this one's been together for a few years now, so it's pretty ready to go. But all you have to do is loosen it up just a little bit, rotate it, be gentle to this. Has a nice hole here so you can put it in your 3-ring binder and hold on to it. Even if you're not working with it very often, you'll be able to keep it in the back of your folder and pull it out when you need to. I will call this place here the pivot, okay, because that's where we'll use it. So I'll say place your pivot here. I'm talking about this hole. Notice that there's numbers on throughout the holes, okay, on some of them. So I will reference those just so we have a point of reference. Alright, I think that's basically it. Okay, so follow along as I copy this segment. So I'm going to copy this segment. Now notice that in what we can have to make a construction: pencil, straight edge, compass. There's nothing that says a ruler. There's nothing that we can measure stuff with. And so what we're going to do to make sure that when we copy this segment, it's the same, we're going to use our straight edge. Okay, not measuring anything, just using our straight edge. Okay. From there, I'm going to identify some starting point. I'll just make a point there. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pivot and I'm going to put it on one of the endpoints of the first line that I'm trying to copy. Okay, I'll place some pressure on it with my finger. And then what I'm going to do is with the other half of the line, or the other side, I'm going to find the hole that intersects with its endpoint. Here we go. So that's 48, 47, 46, 45. 45. Okay, and you can mark this for yourself just so that when you're done, you can, if you take a break, you can come back and know where you're at. It's 45. I'm going to now put my pivot on the endpoint of the line that I just created. Place some pressure, 47, 46, 45. Make an arc. Okay. And now, this new point, bolden it out a little bit, make intersection where that arc intersected the line I created. And now I know that this line segment is the same as this one. It's copied. Okay? Copy the same one. Okay. So you can do the next one on your own. Okay, try that out. Pretty simple. Doesn't have to be in the same orientation. Where you have space, you can draw a line. Okay. Alright. Let's talk about copying an angle. An angle is a little bit more difficult. Okay. But basically what we're going to do, we're going to create the bottom of the line. We're going to do something so we can find exactly where this angle comes through, and then we're going to draw a straight line through it. Okay? So first things first, as we copy an angle, or construct a congruent angle, I'm going to draw a straight line. This is going to be like the base, or sorry, the bottom ray of my angle. Okay, I'm just going to make this point here. Okay, now everything else I do, I want to do to this original angle first, and then copy it to the one I'm creating. So the first things first is I'm going to put my pivot on the vertex of the angle, and I'm going to choose a number. It doesn't matter what number. I typically try to go about like 30, 40, but I want to choose a number. I'm going to choose the number 30. I'm going to make an arc. Again, I'm going to label this as 30 so that I know what's happening. And since I just did that to the angle that I'm trying to copy, I'm going to do that same thing to my new one. Pivot there, make my arc. Okay, 30, that way I know exactly what's happening. Okay, now what I just did is I created a new point. I'm just going to call this point K. Okay, call this point K as well, sure. Alright, so now what I'm going to do, since I have that point in common with both of these, I'm going to now put my vertex on point K. Oh no, that was not big enough. I did not like that. Okay, I'm going to put my vertex on point K now, my pivot on point K now. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find the hole that intersects with the second ray. Okay, and so that's inside this little circle. Maybe I should have chosen a bigger number, but I didn't. So let's go from here. So this is 19, 18, 17, 18. At hole 18, if I make that arc, you see that this intersection now is on the second ray of that angle. Okay, so we need to make our own point A here. So we'll do the same thing. I'll put my pivot here on point K prime or whatever, and then I'm going to find out where 18 intersects with that line, and I'm going to make that mark. Okay? Alright, if you do this and you're waiting till I'm done, might be better to try 40. You'll have to do different numbers than me, but might be better to try 40. Okay, so now what we just did though is we created over here in A prime, we created the same intersection. Okay, so I have a point now. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a straight line that goes from my vertex to this point. And when I do that, I will have copied that angle. Keep my thing straight. All right. Alright, and so I have my copied angle. Okay, you can try that down here as well to copy this angle. Alright, copying an angle is probably one of the more difficult things to do in this construction. So if it takes you a little bit, that's okay. You'll get the hang of it. Okay, now let's talk about constructing bisectors. A bisector is very similar to a midpoint. There are a couple differences that I want to point out so that we can make sure that we understand the difference as we go through. Okay, first, a midpoint is on a line. Okay, but a bisector goes through a line. So a bisector is something that goes through. A midpoint is something that's a part of the line. A midpoint is a noun, something that is, it's a thing, while bisect is a verb. Bisect means to cut in half. Okay, so a bisector is a line that cuts in half. Midpoints are specific to lines. You will only have a midpoint in a line, while bisectors can be found within lines as well as angles. Okay. So let us construct our first bisector. Okay, in order to construct the bisector, this is what we'll do. We'll put our pivot on one of the endpoints, and we'll choose a number. Now, when we choose this number, we want to make sure that it's more than halfway across the line. Okay, we do not want it to be less than half, so we'll be aggressive in choosing our number. I'm going to choose the number 40. To me, it is plenty past the halfway point. Okay, I chose the number 40. I'm going to write that down so that I can see that, because I need to use that same number from the other endpoint. So I'm going to put my vertex on the other endpoint, put some pressure there, and then I'm going to choose 40. Okay, and so what's created here is 2 points. Point here, point here, where those two arcs intersect. I'm going to make a straight line through those 2 points. Through those 2 points. Didn't go through that one. Alright. And what I did now is I created a perpendicular bisector. Okay? So perpendicular means creates a right angle, 90 degrees. Bisector means cut in half. So perpendicular bisector, 90-degree angle, cuts these two in half. Alright, on the test and quiz, it's going to be important, guys, remember, or actually not remember because I'm telling you for the first time, it's going to be important that you're going through the right process. So I'd rather you go through the right process and be a little off because your contractor moved than to measure and have a line that goes directly in the middle, okay? So remember that we can't measure when we're doing constructions. Alright, final construction here. We are going to create a angle bisector. Okay, and while it's a little bit more involved than a perpendicular bisector, shouldn't be too tough. Alright, so for an angle bisector, what we're going to do is we're going to put our vertex, or sorry, a pivot on the vertex of the angle, and then I'm going to choose a number. I'm going to choose the number 30, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm choose the number 34. Okay. It really doesn't matter what number you choose. Again, you really don't want it to be too small. Otherwise, it just becomes difficult to work with. But other than that, it shouldn't be anything too bad. Okay, now we have 2 points, A, B here. And all we're going to do is from these points, we're going to choose a number. It doesn't matter what number. What you do want is that whatever number you choose goes over the angle. Okay, and so it shouldn't be too many numbers that don't do that. I'm going to choose the number 30. Okay, now I did that with my pivot on A. I'm going to do the same thing with my pivot on B. Put my pivot on B, and I'm going to choose the number 30. Try to get out of your way, but probably didn't. Okay, so I'm going to choose the number 30. I see that it intersects right here. Okay. Now, where these two arcs intersected, straight line from the vertex to where those two arcs intersect will be the angle bisector. And I did not go through that at all. Not at all. Sorry, guys. And now it wasn't going through the vertex. Alright, there we go. That's better. Alright. So now that's our angle bisector we created. Alright, so a few constructions there. Go through those processes. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. You do not need these drawn out for you in order to practice. You can make straight lines and angles on your own paper to practice if you'd like more examples of that. Okay, see ya.